Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. Hey all, welcome to yet another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. I've got a special guest today, and it has to do with delivering babies in the back seats of cars, on the sides of mountains, in airplanes and school buses, maybe in your own living room like I was born 40 some odd years ago in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Jessica, the combat midwife. What the heck is a combat midwife? Are people delivering babies in combat?
Yes. So what we do is we have two different methods. You can use the AK version or the AR version, but it's under fire. There are two lanes that you can choose from.
TCCC birthing.
It's TCCC birthing. So there's a hyphen at the end. There's a B after the TCCC for birthing. Yeah. And this is a great, it's a really amazing project, I've put together so that way we can get, none of this there's no bullets.
So you have some sarcasm. We dig that. So you're a paramedic?
I'm a paramedic and a midwife. Yes.
And a midwife. And just to let folks know, once upon a time, you got hooked up with the United States military, and now you have trained over 50,000 service members on giving birth.
So, on not just that, but paramedicine, flight medicine, the PJ program, a bunch of other special operations stuff I probably can't talk about, and a whole bunch of other things. Oh. Homeland Security. Oh. Yeah.
Talk about why somebody, let's go broad here. So I was born at home.
Okay.
My mother and father had 11 kids, and 9 of us, starting with me, were born at home. And so it was kind of a normal thing for me as a child to hear about my mother would help other women birth babies. And kind of in this modern world now, it's like cool to do what was always normal. So now this type of thing has become more mainstream, but 40, 50, 30 years ago, you went to the hospital to deliver a baby. So just let's talk about midwifing for a bit. Talk to the listeners about that.
So midwifery is one of the oldest professions. You can go back to the Bible. You can look at
a prostitution joke in here.
There is, and I didn't know how sarcastic you're going to allow me to be on your show, so I was going to throw that in there, but I backed off a little.
Do whatever you want to do.
Fantastic. So yeah, we can go back to many texts and even scroll, hieroglyphics on the walls of Egyptian tombs and all sorts of things. Like, midwives have been with us since the beginning of time. And so the word midwife is Old English. It means a woman helping another woman give birth or take care of a woman during childbearing years. So that's essentially 9 to 90.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So to kind of flash forward many decades, in America, it has been primarily, we've been cared for by midwives that have taken care of women and the community as a whole. There's a lot more history I'm skipping over, but to condense it, really about the 1900s, we had kind of a turn, a big shift, right? We had the Industrial Revolution. Everybody was trying to streamline things, and which sounds cool at the time. And now our generation is trying to undo all of that, right? Like you mentioned, now it's kind of, it's kitschy and cool to like say, oh, I had a home birth. When this has really been,
I'm raising some chickens.
Or I'm raising some chickens. Exactly. Or I'm collecting seeds this summer or whatever, right? We're trying to go back to what our great grandparents would have done. And that would have been normal, and they wouldn't have understood why we thought it was cool to fight over seeds online. But really what took place in the medical community is, instead of having apprenticeship programs for physicians, which you were chosen by your community and you were then raised by the doctor that would eventually pass away or retire or whatever, and you were passed on that skill set, we changed that into having universities, which there's pros and cons to that, right? Streamlining education, but there's also a loss of art, right? Because there's a part of medicine that is very artistic. I have to be able to individualize my care for you. So with that, midwives had a lot of control over birth for those, I would say, till probably the 30s. And then we had this huge shift. And that was the medical community was really upset that they were losing funds on this women-centered birth process. And if you look today, the number one billable code in medical coding is anything to do with OBGYN. So anything to do with gynecological, birth, labor, delivery type stuff. And so that's the most billable thing today. It's the most commonly chosen billable hour. And it's because people are constantly going to be having babies. So you flash forward to things like twilight sleep, which got introduced in the 30s, 40s, really was hit. It was really a big thing, 50s and 60s, which twilight sleep is where we would put women to sleep, but their conscious was asleep, but their subconscious was awake. And that was what would help them facilitate the delivery process. But they would cut at a complete episiotomy, put in forceps and just rip babies out. And that's to
tell the listeners, I know what an episiotomy is, but tell the listeners what that is.
That's taking a pair of scissors and cutting the perineal tissue. So that's the tissue between the vaginal opening and the anus opening. And that's cutting all the way through that.
So literally, rather than waiting for the body to do what it was supposed to do,
correct,
soften and widen, they just snip that tissue.
Yeah. And so what most people don't know.
Horrific.
It's horrific. Yeah. There was a lot of death. There was a lot of dismemberment. There was a lot of big problems, cerebral palsy, all sorts of problems with the baby, brain injuries, hemorrhages, because you're putting these essentially salad tongs on baby and then pulling them out before the natural physiological process kicked in. So this is the trauma of birth that has been going on for decades. And this is why most people, even our age, if you ask our moms or our grandparents, hey, what was your birth process like? Some of them don't even really have that connection because this process took place. They don't necessarily
they were just like knocked out and then
Right. You can even, there are YouTube videos that you can find if you dig hard enough where you can watch this whole process take place and they're thrashing around and fighting the whole process because their conscious mind is numb, it's turned off, but their subconscious, which is our, animalistic and our fight or flight response is fighting this process because it's not normal, it's not natural. And so they would strap these women down. And if you've watched like classic old movies of the dads waiting in the waiting room and they're smoking their cigar and all these dads are bonding, right? I'm going to have a baby soon, but you don't get to see your wife or baby for 3 days. Why? Because she has to heal. Right? You can't see her with marks on her hands and being strapped down to this table. And she's coming out of medications we don't even use anymore. Right? The medication.
That was why I was born at home, because my mom had a situation like that with 2 siblings.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's awful. That breaks my heart.
Well,
that's sad.
Her choice, right?
Well, yeah, I'm sure there is a choice, but there's also a part of this where you don't know what you don't know. Right? Like you don't know the questions to ask and the things to educate yourself on. And poor daddies don't know either. They're like, oh, that's woman's stuff. I hope you know what the heck you're doing. Right.
So one thing I would interject, and I'm not a specialist in the birthing field, but we do have a higher success rate of births now than we did in history. I mean, you walk through cemeteries and there's like gravestones everywhere of infants. That's not the case now.
So that's a bit of a misconception, and that's so that's propaganda from the medical community. Yes.
No, I mean, literally, I walk through cemeteries and you see, especially early American cemeteries, because that's all I have to go off here in the States.
Correct. And I'm not saying
in modern cemeteries.
Right. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. But it's a misconception that birth is what is causing that. Most of the infant deaths and the maternal deaths during those time periods had everything to do with cleanliness. So washing of hands, soap and water, sterile process. it wasn't the birth process. Here's what I tell people all the time. If those really ignorant, uneducated individuals from the past couldn't continue having babies, then we wouldn't be here.
True. That's true. That makes good sense.
So, when we are ignorant ourselves and naive to the fact that we have all these things to micromanage a normal physiological process and think that we know better than whoever you believe created us and however you believe we got put on this planet, that's a bit egotistical, right? As a human populace, to say, I know better on how to do something that's normal and physiologic.
I agree with that. So do you feel that most mothers should just get a midwife and do their thing at home?
Yes, absolutely.
Put some newspapers down and
Well, I mean, you could order the combat midwife kit and then you'd have everything you need. But yeah, newspaper would work.
You sell a kit with newspapers in it?
No, there's not newspapers. There's actual chucks pads in it. But there's an actual combat midwife kit, and you can buy all the things you would need. It comes in a little box, and it's everything you would need to ever take care of a birth at home for you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that part later.
Sure.
So, I know I've got lots of friends that are MDs, and you probably had these discussions.
Yes.
I'm sure some, like my mother, had multiple friends. One of them was named Gregory White. He's gone now. Super cool, old timey doctor, black bag. Like the kid can't sleep. Give him a little shot of bourbon. Like he was like that kind of old doc. But
that's my kind of medicine.
He delivered, I think, thousands and thousands of babies.
Yeah.
He delivered probably half of my brothers and sisters. But a guy like that or a gal like that understands what you're doing. But so much, I guess, modern doctors, they'd probably say that you're careless or reckless.
Oh, yes, for sure. Oh, yeah. All the time. Yeah, absolutely. So then I just... first of all, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and something that I believe in doesn't necessarily have to be what you believe in. Okay. But if you want to talk facts with me, then, and that's me talking to the physician, right? If you want to do medicine here, then let's talk facts. So the United States ranks 60th globally for mother and infant mortality rates. 60th. That means there's 59 other countries that have better infant and mother mortality rates than us. Number 2, out of the top 10 industrialized nations, we're last. That means Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all have better baby and mom outcomes with birth. The World Health Organization, which I know we don't all love them right now, but they have decades and decades and decades of birth information where they've collected globally. And they even state on their website that less than 10% of all birth globally should ever need intervention. I didn't say anything about C-section. Let's do those numbers. The United States has a 40% C-section rate. 40. That's insanity. You're
Say
telling
that again?
Me? Yeah. We have a 40% C-section rate. Did you know that there are...
So 4 out of 10 children are birthed through cesarean.
Yes, there are cities in the United States and states that have higher percentages in the United States.
So talk about that to the lay person. I mean, I think most people know what a C-section is, but just explain what that's all about.
What the medical procedure is?
Yes, ma'am.
So the medical procedure is to do a surgical incision into the abdominal cavity, take a scalpel, cut the bladder off of the uterus, lay that on her knees, then pull the uterus up and out of her body, cut that open, and physically remove the baby.
I didn't know the bladder got removed. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, you got to cut it off.
That's why a lot of mothers after C-sections have
bladder
urinary
problems,
tract issues where they can't hold their bladder. They really got to pee all the time, things like that.
Yep. Yes.
40%.
Yes.
All right. I'm listening.
And so cities like New York, Los Angeles, Big metropolitan areas have much higher C-section rates. And this is there's a cultural aspect of it, right? We have, I would say the last 20, 30 years specifically has been very much a, me woman, we can do everything. So we're going to work, have kids, have an awesome career, all this stuff. So I don't have time for this labor delivery. I'm just going to get this kid cut out. We'll sew it all back up. We'll nip and tuck stuff and move on. So there is a cultural aspect of that you will see a bit more in the more populated areas. The other thing is that medicine is a business. The medical industry is a business, and they are selling you a product. They use fear and our own ignorance, which that's not a slam towards people. You're really good at something. I'm really good at something. I don't know how to fix computers. That's not my area of expertise. I rely on someone who fixes computers to know how to do that. I rely on a physician to tell me the truth. But most of them are selling a service. And this service, the more things you sell, the more money you're going to take in. So a C-section starts at $50,000. That's what they're going to bill your insurance at a bare minimum. A natural, non-complicated, no medications, no IV, no nothing is going to start at $10,000. These are national averages. So obviously there are places that are going to be some less and some more. But what do you want to sell more of? A labor that is going to cost you, you're going to make maybe a few $1,000s off of, and it's going to take you up 10, 12 hours of time to birth this baby? Or do you want to sell $50,000 in 30 minutes? Because technically, from start to finish, it takes about 30 minutes. It takes no time to get the baby out, maybe about 5 to 7 minutes. And the rest of that time is me sewing her back up and putting her back together. So what do you want to sell more of? And we have to remember that OBGYNs, they are surgeons. They are not specialists in natural, normal, physiological birth. Midwives are.
So what is the pushback if we had a group of OBs listening to this? What would their pushback be? First of all, number one, you're not a doctor.
Right. They're going to say, I'm not a doctor. I didn't go to medical school, so I have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. That's going to be the first thing that they're probably going to say to me.
How many babies have you partaken in the birth or a birth of?
Several hundred.
Okay.
Several hundred.
So more than 5 or 6.
Way more than 5 or 6. I have families in the community that I serve that I've delivered every baby in that entire family. The retired chief OB of a particular hospital system, I delivered all his grandbabies. So midwives do know what the heck they're doing. We go to school for a really long time. I went to school for 9 years. I had to deliver a very large amount of babies in that time.
I didn't know that. I thought to be a midwife, you just say you're a midwife.
No, I'm there. No.
I mean, because I knew ladies growing up that were midwives that literally just were like, I'm a midwife. I'm going to sit here with you while you push a kid out.
Yeah. So, I mean, sure, there's a certain amount of education. There are different pathways. There's definitely different pathways to become a midwife. I wrote an entire article in a medical journal about that. There's 3 different pathways in the United States. There's the nurse pathway. So you went to nursing school and then you go to a master's degree in midwifery. I don't think those are real midwives. That's a pretty ballsy statement I just made, but whatever.
Well, let's
dive into that.
Yeah, just for a second. Just so
the reason I say that is because they're going off of the medical model of care.
Okay, so they're working in a OB ward in a hospital, delivering babies. Okay.
Right. So they're following the footsteps of the medical model of care. Then there's a certified professional midwife. And those are midwives that go to a certain school program, just like a nurse would. So there's distance learning and there's brick and mortar schools for both pathways. You can either go the nursing route and you do a distance learning program, or you do an actual brick and mortar school. And I'm a CPM and I did a distance learning program. So those exist in all fields, right? I had a school I was attached to. I did their stuff, their didactic stuff via online. And then I went and did my clinicals. I went and did my schooling did my rotations, caught my babies, all that kind of stuff with an actual practice. And I worked with them for a really long time.
You said 9 years of school.
Yeah, it took me 9 years to finish.
Why so long?
Because I was also simultaneously going, taking care of military, teaching them to do weird things, jumping out of perfectly good airplanes.
So what the hell does a midwife have to do with parachuting?
So I happen to also be a paramedic. And
Okay.
so I function under both roles for the military. And so I teach them a wide variety of things. So I've worked with the combat medics, the flight medics, the PJs, uh, other fun special operations stuff. I'm just naming things most people will know about. And Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol. I'm teaching these guys and these gals how to fill up bullet holes and put on tourniquets and do a trauma assessment and take care of a cardiac arrest. And so I'm very well versed in the medical community just because I have that paramedic background and I happen to also be a midwife. They're two licenses I hold.
Very cool. So in the hundreds of babies, had you have any that were problematic births where like 911 had to get called or kids raced to the hospital in an ambulance kind of stuff?
In my personal practice, no. There was one incident in school. So I was still a student. I was still a trainee, and the placenta just wouldn't come out. I tried everything. I gave the medications. I tried manual removal. It just wouldn't come out. We actually did a transfer I had 911 called. I said it wasn't an emergency. I just said, I need to be transported to the hospital because it won't come out. My midwife educator, I was pretty much done with school at that point. And my midwife educator really loved me and felt very comfortable because I had so much emergency medicine training. And I was already working for the military training the soldiers as well. So she said, you just go with the ambulance. That's your area. Like, you know how to handle that. You take over. And so I went with the mom to the hospital and I managed the whole thing. The paramedic was amazing. He goes, this is awesome. I'll just get you there. Just tell me what you want. I said, can you take me to, this is when Lackland was a level 1 trauma center and they had a really awesome OB department that is not an open hospital anymore. But we drove down there. I walked in and the OB, I called ahead and said, I need an OB to actually meet me in the ER. This is why. And they said, okay, not a problem. No big deal. The OB actually met me at the doors. I gave him a full report and he goes, that's awesome. So he took me into the room and I was still doing my treatment plan for the patient. And he goes, you're doing great. Let me assess her. Just stay where you're at and take care of that. The bleeding, I'm going to assess her. And so they wound up taking care of it. They took her into surgery and just basically removed it from the uterus. It was fine. It's called a placenta accreta. They're extremely rare. And you don't really know about them prior to. And so he actually walked out and he goes, where's your instructor? And I was like, oh God, my heart sank. I went, oh God, oh my God, this is the day I die. Like, this is the day I get my arse handed to me. Okay. I said, she's right over here. He goes, I need to speak with her. I said, yes, sir, not a problem. So I went and got her, brought her back. And he goes, I just want you to know that your student handled that really, really well. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've been in practice for 40 years and I've never seen one of these in real life. And she managed it perfect. So whatever you got to do for her paperwork, sign her off.
Cool.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So those are that's one situation that I can think of. I am very conservative with birth. So anytime something looks funky or weird, I ask for more help. So if it's outside of something I feel is normal, then I will help. I will make sure someone gets some help. But I also expect a lot from my moms, and this is not all midwives. This is just me. I expect them to eat healthy. I expect them to drink enough water. I expect them to get enough rest. I expect them to exercise during pregnancy. I expect them to manage their stress levels. I expect them to create themselves like a family unit, whatever that family unit looks like. It doesn't have to be blood, create a sisterhood. You need a support group. So that means make friends and make people that are going to support you during this process. Because I am not it. I am not your savior. I am not your rescuer. I'm not going to be your crutch. This is your baby. This is your birth. If I'm doing all the work, then I get to keep the kid, right? I get to keep the reward. So I expect to have clients, patients, whatever you want to call them, that are very hardworking, that are very diligent, and they want this just as much as they want to have a healthy, happy baby. And it also has to be something that families agree on, right? I need husbands that are going to be rocks. I need husbands that are going to have the corner for their wives, that are going to be, kind of use that boxing metaphor, that are going to be standing in the corner, dousing her with water, giving her a pep talk, and sending her back in to get that next contraction. So he's got to be a man's man that can handle that kind of stuff.
I dig it. Is there clients that come to you that you say, I'm probably not the person to help you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would something like that look like?
Someone that likes a victimhood mentality, someone that wants me to be their rock. That's not a role I am supposed to be playing. My role is to protect you. My role is to recognize an emergency if it was to arise, treat it if it does, and get you to better care. So if I'm your emotional support animal, I can't do those things, right? I cannot be detached from the situation. Don't get me wrong. I really love on my mamas. Okay. The personality you get in the classroom taking care of dudes with beards, I'll never know their first name, right? Versus me caring for a mom. Those are two completely different Jessicas. I mean, it's the same, it's my same heart and same soul that I'm dumping into this person, but it's very different. I will love on a mama. I'll cry with you. I'll get on the floor and work through a contraction with you. We will walk through that fire together. But I have to be a little bit detached from that, or I can't be objective with everything, right? I can't look at the situation and go, this is not quite what I want it to be. So these are the next avenues we need to take.
It makes sense. You mentioned a couple times about all of this training. Is that state by state that works? Because I know people that, like I said, say they're midwife, and I don't think they've got any like legitimate schooling.
So there is a definite thought process that I don't necessarily disagree with. And that's because I'm a freedom loving patriot. And I don't believe that the government gets to force me to purchase a piece of paper that enables me to perform a skill. I just don't. I don't feel that way about firearms. I don't feel that way about driving a car. I just don't, right? We live in a free country. You should be able to do what you are capable of doing as long as you don't hurt somebody else, right? Like I think everybody with a brain could probably agree with that. And I know I'm making really big and bold statements here, but most midwives fit into a category of licensure, that they're either licensed by the state, either at the nurse midwife level or the CPM level, which is certified professional midwife level. That's your own personal thing. I just don't believe I should ask the state to permission to be able to perform a skill I went to school to learn. I spent a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, money to be able to learn a skill and learn a trade. I don't believe I should ask the government if I can, please, mother, may I? Please, can you let me do what I know how to do? Sure. If I'm not good at my job, don't worry. The community will tar and feather me real freaking quick, right? I mean, the community knows how to weed out problems, right? We do that with plumbers, in the gun community, we do that with construction workers. I mean, you figure out real quick who to call and who not to call.
Sure. And all that licensing stuff that we're talking about is we the people, the government, we the people having a level of protection, right? So we say the gal that does your fingernails learned how to properly sterilize shit so everybody doesn't have fungal infections, and the barber knows how to put his scissors in the blue juice so that we're not passing disease to each other. So I do get it, but for me, example, I've got a background in construction and I travel all over the country, and there are plenty of places that I go where like I live in Chicago, you need a building permit for every single, I mean, you
Sure.
need freaking put a new window in your house, you need a permit. Whereas I've been places where you can build a whole home and nobody gives a shit. And
Mm-hmm.
that's great until the house burns down because somebody didn't understand electrical codes or gas codes and things
Sure.
like that. Yeah.
Right. But, there's risk to
I'm
having
just playing
freedom.
devil's advocate here.
Absolutely. But, one of the very first questions I get asked by a family is, where did you go to school and what did that look like for you? Not, do you have a license?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Where did you go to school? What did that look like? How many babies have you delivered? How many families have you worked with? They're asking me the questions that you're asking me today, which is, how many babies have you delivered, and have you had any bad outcomes? And if so, what did that look like? And how did you handle that? And what do we do if there's an emergency? They're not asking, did I pay the state of Texas
Sure.
an extortion fee to use my knowledge?
You're pissed about it.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like people want to know what you know, not who you know, right? And that to me,
who you paid.
Or who you exactly. And that's what I was going to say. Like, the who you know is who you paid at that point. Yeah, for sure.
When you did all this schooling, what are some of like the big issues that come up in home births or non-conventional hospital births? What are like the big things that I'm sure there's like a cluster of common issues? And like, it sounds like you're trying to set women up for success by having them be healthy for delivery. I'm sure most of these women are seeing an OB prior to birth.
No. So no. Midwives care for women during their entire childbearing years. So throughout the whole pregnancy, we're not doing co-care. If they want to, that's fine. Then they're probably not a client for me.
So do they still do like the ultrasounds and all that stuff leading up to birth?
You can if you want to. Absolutely. Okay. So everything is an option. I don't force people to do things. So I tell people what your options are. So your options are, sure, you could get your blood drawn and see what your levels are before you get further along in your pregnancy. Sure, you could go ahead and do the genetic testing if you would like to do that. But these are the pros and these are the cons of that. See, that's called informed consent, which is not something that American medicine practices very much. And we found that out.
Con to data? What is a con to having data?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll use ultrasounds and I'll use genetic testing as a very good example. Our genetic testing is not perfect, and there are a lot of false positives with genetic testing. So do you really want to subject yourself to a stressful pregnancy? And we know that stress negatively affects mom and baby during pregnancy. Okay. So do you want to have a stressful pregnancy for a maybe or a what if? Or do you just like to enjoy your pregnancy and then deal with what God gives you later on? Okay. Right? Okay. We also have to realize that ultrasound was created by the US government and it was created as warfare, right? That's what sonogram is. It's actually supposed to destroy cells. That's the whole purpose of sonography. So yes, it does give us a really great insight when there is an emergency. And I love sonography when I have a need to use it, but just to use it, then you're fishing. You're on a fishing expedition. You're looking for a problem, right?
Well, isn't that a good thing to do?
My personal belief would be no, but I have plenty of clients that like to just look around and make sure things are okay. I personally would not do that. I personally would not go searching for problems, but there are plenty of people that like to. But in example, I had a client call me a couple weeks ago, sobbing, crying her eyes out, absolutely losing it because she's pregnant. And, pregnant women, they cry a lot. So she goes, I just had a sonogram and they think they found gastroschisis. And I said, okay, now gastroschisis is when the baby's organs are growing outside of their actual abdominal cavity. I said, okay, all right. Well, this is one sonogram. and we don't have enough information yet. So we're going to have to do more homework to figure out if that's actually true. Because more than likely, what happened is the baby's umbilical cord was bunched up in front of the baby's belly, and that's what it looks like. Because we're trying to take a 2D image and apply it to our 3D, 4D world, right? It's gray and grainy. I mean, they're really difficult to read in general, and they're not super reliable. Again, like genetic testing, they are wrong more often than they are right. They're great for checking and seeing lady bits or boy bits. They're great. If you really want to know if you're having a boy or a girl, fine, go get a sonogram. That's great. It's either an innie or an outie, and you'll figure it out in about 2.2 seconds. But if you're looking for things like structure of hearts and is the blood flowing and are the organs in all the different places, you have to do that at specific times, because the baby's too big at a point where you can't see everything. It would be like trying to look at my face as my face is smushed up against the camera. You're not going to get all the detail and depth, right, that you need. So it's just very difficult. Again, personal preference, not a reason that I wouldn't necessarily work with a family. I have plenty of families that just love seeing pictures of their baby. Great, go knock yourself out. But we have no long-term data on what sending sono rays into a condensed area for a long period of time. The belly gets hot. I mean, we're talking hot when we do that. That's why she has to keep pulling the probe off the belly, because it's sending heat into that baby's world, and they hate it. They'll pull away. Babies like violently move away from that because it's sending really loud sound, and it's hot for them. It's cooking their fluid. They don't like it. I mean, I don't remember being a baby, so I'm not entirely sure.
I didn't know if you had some data.
I don't know. I don't remember the numbers. I'm sure it's out there. I'm sorry. I just don't remember, but.
All right. I was impressed until you didn't have that data point.
I'm so sorry. I will go do homework after this.
So it sounds like you are more into letting nature do what nature does.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah, nature's been doing this for quite a while without us interrupting, and that she's been doing just fine.
So what's your thoughts on male genital mutilation for male boys?
It is
AKA circumcision.
I know what you're referring to, and you referred to it the proper way the first time. Yeah. No, that is absolutely genital mutilation. It is traumatic, horrible. It's medical rape, and I don't support it in any way, shape, or form.
Talk about that a little bit, just because I'm sure it's something that your moms and dads talk to you about. My parents had strong opinions on it. I happen to have had my penis mutilated by doctors.
I'm super sorry.
Circumcised. But you do some research on it, you listeners, you find out that if you're going to have a young son and you ruin his penis, you probably took a lot of pleasure away from them later in their adult life.
So when baby boys and baby girls are being formed in the womb, we are working with the same DNA form, and the same material that makes the clitoris is the exact same skin and nerve material that makes the foreskin of the penis. The amount of tissue that is removed from the baby boy looks teeny tiny because he's teeny tiny, but it is the same amount of skin that would make up a 3x5 card.
Oh shit. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of skin that was
nerve endings
that was taken away from you. So that's just the skin. The nerve endings, the clitoral hood is only one part of the clitoris. It also goes around all the way to the perineal wall and deep into the muscular tissue. The nerve endings do. So like when I mentioned an episiotomy, there are some women that after they have that procedure, they don't have the ability to climax anymore, because that damage is permanent for some women. So when we remove, life is hard enough. Let's not take that away too. So when we remove that skin from the baby boy, without their consent, there's no way to numb that area. You cannot topically numb the erectile tissue of the penis. It's not possible. So they feel everything. There are a few hundred babies that die every year in the US alone from that procedure from brain hemorrhage or hemorrhaging out of their penis. So they're in so much pain that they rupture arteries in their brain and they bleed out.
Could you imagine just anybody listening being a parent and having your child at a couple days old, having the circumcision done, and doctors come out and say, we lost your kid, just snipping this little bit of flesh off?
Yeah.
There's no good medical reason for it either. We're like the only country in the world that still does it just because.
Right.
It's not a religious practice. It's just because.
Right. And even with that being said, even as a religious practice, we protect baby girls from religious practice regarding.
I just mean, like, at least in other countries that do it, they have like some moral or religious code that they're following. We just do it because, okay, the kids, you got a boy, now bring him in here and let's chop his toe off, or let me just chop your earlobe off.
So the skin then is collected from the baby boy and the hospitals sell it. And the hospitals make money off of the foreskin. And that is sold to make different products like shampoo, face creams, lotions, anything that says it's cell regenerating, anything that promotes growth, like hair growth, cell growth of your skin. That's penis tissue.
So pharmaceutical or cosmetic companies are
cosmetic companies are purchasing that to use as a way. It's not the only way, but it's a large way for them to create cellular regrowth. And that's because it's baby tissue. I mean, it's the same thing they do with other baby tissue. So they use that as a way because there's stem cells in it. Just like they also collect placentas from the hospital. The hospital sells placentas as well. They make an insane amount of money selling your placenta that belonged to you. And they again, shampoos, face creams, L'Oreal's skin regenerating, whatever the heck. L'Oreal, don't sue me. I don't know if you really do that, but you get the point.
Wow. It's that kind of stuff's infuriating to me because then look at, like, from a cultural sense, I've had this conversation like around women and they're like, I don't want to see that because that's like a weird penis, right? Just talking on the circumcision for a minute. So rather than have my son decide maybe when he's an adult that he wants to do this, I just don't want girls to laugh at him when he's older or whoever sees his private. So I'm just gonna I'm going to do what everybody else does and just whack the tip of his dick off. Like that seems quite horrible to think about.
Yeah.
One more point. I've read quite a bit on female genital mutilation around the world.
Yes.
I've got a sister that spends a lot of time in the Middle East, and she's in a country right now where it's still quite common. And her and I were just talking actually last week. There's this group of women that are fighting to stop. And you guys that don't know what I'm talking about, it's quite normal for many countries, Africa and Middle East, to literally remove the labia and like all the outside bits, right? You know what I'm talking about from a female. Anyway, the point of me bringing it up is there was a lot of women in those countries that willingly bring their daughters to have this stuff done because, one, it was done to me. It's just the way things are. And it's just you don't want to be different. So you willingly take your daughter. And then there's people that live here in the States or other countries where it's not the norm that come from these places. And when their daughters are of whatever the proper age is, they take them home and have a doctor mutilate their freaking 10, 9, 12-year-old daughter. There's so much. So it's bizarre to me.
Yeah, I've definitely had arguments with, friends or coworkers or other people that are that are female, and they'll make that same, what I think is a very horrible statement. And so I flip it, or, the whole like, ew, it's gross. I don't want to see that. So I flip it around and go, well, if if I told you that your labia was really gross, or if I told you that your nose was really gross and I didn't want to look at it, I mean, are you going to go get a nose job? Or are
Hmm.
you going to go get reconstructive surgery of your labia? I mean,
Hmm.
how self-centered and disgusting of a culture are we that we think baby boys are subpar individuals and they were born broken and they need plastic surgery on their penis and they're not even 48 hours old. They just had their brain squished to go through a vagina. And this is the other thing. Women always cry and scream and whine and they're go, I don't want an episiotomy. I don't want to be cut. I don't want to be cut. And then they ship their baby boys off to get their the head of their entire penis removed.
That's a interesting analogy. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
They cry and whine, I don't want to be cut. But then they paid another adult that should have protected and provided for them to cut the head of their baby boy's penis off.
I think it should be a crime, actually.
I agree too.
From years of reading about it, the instant response from people in the medical field, and there's the doctor friends of mine, actually one of my doctor friends that listens to this podcast is a well-known pediatrician, and I know that he will tell us, he'll text me, so I know you're going to text me, that it's a hygiene issue. It's a hygiene issue. So it's well, why don't we just like dip kids in chlorhexidine when they're born, then like give out every mom a 50-gallon drum of it or something? Because of course I'm being an idiot, but like there's always things that are germs in the world that you have to properly clean yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's this new invention. It's called soap and water. You should try it. I mean, you teach your daughter to clean behind her ears and brush her teeth and wash her lady bits. You can't teach your baby boy how to wash his giblets. I mean, what kind of world are we living in that let's just remove it? Are we going to start removing breast buds from baby girls because they might get breast cancer? Let's just do that. Let's make it fair. Let's cut the end of penises off and let's take off the breast buds. Done. Now it's fair.
That's horrible. Are you seeing so how long have you been a midwife?
2012, 2013 timeframe is when I graduated.
Okay, so just in the last decade, have you seen a shift in circumcision?
Yeah, absolutely. So many people are really starting to ask questions. I think definitely from our generation, people are starting to ask questions like, why are we doing this? I don't know what happened in 2020. We stopped using our brains, but most people are asking like, why are we doing this procedure? And especially if someone is seeking out home birth, they're already questioning everything. They're questioning the entire status quo of everything. So it's usually a really easy transition for me. And I am very kind. Like the dialogue we're having right now is two friends just shooting the breeze. But I'm very kind with people. I sit down and I say, look, there is absolutely no judgment. If this has been done to you, I still think you're a wonderful, awesome human being. If you have had a baby boy and you did this, you didn't know what you didn't know, but I really want to share some information with you. So we watch a video together where we actually watch the procedure be done. And most women and men can't even make it through watching the procedure done because hearing the baby scream, this isn't a my butt is wet or I need a bottle or I need a breast or, I need to be cuddled. This is a violent terror of I'm in excruciating pain,
Well, I don't know how anybody could see it any different. You just watch a kid, the way they react when they get a shot. And it hurts to have a needle put in you versus a chunk of your flesh chopped off.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So most people see that and go, whoa, make it stop. And I'll turn it off. Like if people are really having a hard time, I'll turn it off. And then we just stop and we talk about it. And most of the time people need to step away a little bit and think. And so I give them time to do that. And then we revisit and I give them a lot of websites, a lot of articles written by physicians, a lot of resources for them to, like Intact America is a great place to start. They have a lot of videos, a lot of resources for you to kind of just go and it's soft, right? It's a soft throw for people to kind of go, oh, okay. But we watch, it's called Elephant in the Delivery Room, and it's about a 20-minute video on YouTube, and we watch that together. And barely anyone makes it past 10 minutes, because about the 10-minute mark is when the video comes out. And if my memory serves me correctly, and we get to that point. But it's a really amazing guest speaker at a university that comes and tells the history of circumcision, explains the procedure. They watch the video, and then they talk about the cultural effects of where this comes from and why this is still happening. But it's not a medical procedure that is done for medical reasons. It's a medical procedure that is done for plastic surgery reasons, and it is meant to have an item that you can tangibly sell for something else. It's a monetary thing. The World Health Organization, Amnesty International, and a million other organizations, that was hyperbolic, but you get the point, have debunked the health issue of it repeatedly. In fact, you can go look at the AIDS study they did in Africa, which was not ethical, by the way. They were doing medical experiments on individuals without their consent in Africa, and the rate of AIDS and HIV was the same. There was no difference in us chopping off the penis. And that's the whole thing we need to understand. Is
they're not chopping the penis off.
Right.
She's not a doctor, everybody.
Yeah, I don't know anatomy, but the whole point there is that the numbers didn't show a decline in the spread of those diseases.
I gotcha. And that's the same stuff that I read. I think it's something that's worth people looking into, especially if you're making babies or are in the medical field. It's interesting how you talked about a moment ago, as we were talking about the history of birthing and how mortality rates have changed. I had to look his name up because I forgot his name, but I've written on him and spoke on him a few times. The dude that figured out that as the doctors were going from the autopsy theater into the birthing rooms and such, and taking hands covered in autopsy juices and putting them into ladies' crotches. Like, I don't know why these kids are dying and moms are getting sick. And what was so funny is he showed them, let's wash our hands off with this solution that I made that kills some magical thing that I think is there, but we can't see. And, and it worked. And doctors were still like, you're an idiot. You can't tell us what to do. Look, I just, I cleaned them off on my shirt here. Yeah. And that was not even that long ago. And it just like, we hold on to the things that we want to believe, the things that we want to, his name was Ignaz Semmelweis.
Yes.
Ignaz Semmelweis.
I was actually
century Hungarian doctor.
I was trying to remember that when I was telling the history. So I'm so glad that, I was like, I could not remember his name. So thank you for looking that up.
He was a good looking dude. Check him out.
Very dapper.
Good looking dude.
Good looking. Yeah, for sure. He got
that was only 1847.
Yeah.
And he actually had a terrible life after that. I do believe he died in a like a mental hospital or something.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I do believe that is the case.
They probably treated him like Tesla and made him think he was crazy.
They did. After a number of unfavorable foreign reviews of his 1861 book, Semmelweis lashed out against his critics in a series of open letters. That's
heartbreaking.
He was put in a straitjacket. Treatments at the mental institution included dousing him with cold water, administering castor oil, a laxative. He died 2 weeks on August 13th, 1865, at age 47, from a gangrenous wound due to an infection on his right hand, which may have been caused by the struggle with one of the people there. But he was severely beaten and secured in a straitjacket and locked in a dark cell. So this guy literally finds one of the things that changed almost more than anything in medicine. And the people at the time beat him up, put him in a straitjacket, and killed his at 47 for doing something now that we all know is a good thing. So I only bring it up because like stuff like this, there's so many things that we do that I was at somebody's house the other day and they thought they were doing me a favor by giving me margarine. And I'm like, who the is margarine? You know, I'm not eating margarine, but like in this guy, his age, his mom and dad, margarine was the right thing. If you're listening and you don't know what I'm talking about, don't eat margarine. But like he just like that. So we had this discussion. Like, I'm like, let's go to the store and I'll buy you some ghee or some Irish butter, you know? And what are you talking about? That's bad for your heart. And I'm like, man, like you're still stuck in
1972 or something.
Like you're probably around my age. Like when we were kids, we had the 4 food groups and the school cafeteria wall. Yeah. Fruits, grains, meats, dairy. Right.
I know.
But we get like fixated on it, like drink your milk. I ain't a cow. I ain't drinking milk.
No, I'm not a baby cow. I don't need milk. I'm good.
I'm good. I drank it a lot when I was a baby.
Right, because I was supposed to drink it as a baby.
Yeah. I don't mind a little in my coffee from time to time, though.
Yeah, so that's different. No, I was disagreeing. I was like, that's different. But I don't need a glass of it at supper.
And there's something else nowadays, like, because I think I was exposed to so much of this as a young man, it was at least something I was aware of. Breastfeeding, the amount of moms that go buy packaged products, mix it with water, feed it to their kid. And I know that there's moms that can't for whatever physical reason, but I think by and large, that's just not the case. It's more of a,
it's not.
What am I looking for? Maybe they don't want their boobs to get wrecked, or they don't have the time to do it. So they don't want to like go through the process. Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that's also the change and shift in breastfeeding also happened about the same time we started kind of demonizing and villainizing midwifery. And the big shift with that is going to be the 40s and the 50s. So if you think about the 40s, all the stuff we have today, like processed foods and packaged foods, microwave, that all came from the 40s because of somewhat necessity because of World War II. And see, women were going to work to do things that their husbands would have done, right? They took over their husbands' businesses, or they went and made bullets and bombs and band-aids, right? And because we needed them to, and something had to feed the baby. Their boobs were in the factory, right? They were a little busy. So that is where it really kind of came from. And they started making these packaged materials of what I call edible items. I do not call it food. I call them edible items.
What are we talking about?
So that's anything that comes in a package that has packaging, right? So stuff that has been transformed and we think we can eat it. So crackers and things that are in boxes and shakes and milk, and all that stuff that we have. The center aisles of the grocery store. Yeah, that's not food, that's edible items. And formula fits into that category. And you really need to do your homework on who created and who's manufacturing formula today. Like, go just do an investigation on the Nestle company and it will wreck your world.
Yeah.
It will wreck your world. I think I grieved over learning the things that I learned about the Nestle company. Like, it really hurt my heart because of how much trauma they have done, not only to our own country, but to the entire continent of Africa.
Talk about it a little bit, because I'm not super familiar with what you're talking about.
It's a company that really has made a living off of packaging edible items, food items. That's everything from water to formula to meal replacements and a zillion other things. I mean, we know what Nestle makes, right? They make chocolate, they make all sorts of stuff. They make a lot of things. And you may not think you're purchasing a Nestle product, but it's probably one of their subsidiaries. And so, because just like our news sources, there's about a handful of companies that make our food products, right? And so Nestle has kind of gone into different communities and just replaced the natural ability that we had built into ourselves, kind of like what we were talking about at the very beginning of this chat about how our culture now, our generation, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, we're all kind of trying to do what our great grandparents were doing. And that's because we're trying to undo what corporations like Nestle has done. And they have replaced the ability for us to seek out natural water because they make water bottles, right?
I would add though, all of those companies exist because people want this shit. People
Yes,
want, it's not
sure.
like, yeah, I just want to make sure that
No,
people don't
no,
think that we're suggesting. I mean, people want to come home and take something out of the cabinet, pour water on it, and have a, whatever it is, right? What people, we
sure.
want simple, easy.
I am not saying that the free market system needs to be trashed because of this. Yes, you vote with your dollars every time you purchase something. That is a true
Right
statement.
on.
And I agree with you on that. What I'm saying is that we have been bamboozled over the years, and women specifically have been told, you're just not making enough milk. So why don't you just top him off? Just top him off with a bottle. It'll be fine. Well, then what happens to your milk supply? It's gone.
Mm,
You because your breast milk is a supply and demand system. If you do not demand it, it will not supply it. That it is
mm.
as simple as that, right? That is just how it works. So when we tell women you're not capable, you can't do this, you're not built for this, women are susceptible to that type of manipulation. We are different than men.
Yeah.
Our brains function differently. We are to be provided and protected for. That is a true statement. It's biological. You can argue with me. I don't care. That's just how we work. So when you have hierarchies of doctors, nurses, people that are towering over and should be providing and protecting for us as women, telling us, you just can't make enough milk, or look, he's still hungry, let's just top him off. Or my favorite, when doctors say just put the rice cereal in the bottle and he'll sleep all night, right? You're setting people up for failure and not being able to be independent and self-sufficient. You're
Mm.
creating an environment that makes me need you, and that's all about money, right? When How many times have we seen the meme? You want to tell them the government to pound sand? Well, you can go buy seeds, go have a garden, go have a lot of babies, breastfeed, have a home birth, create something you can trade and barter with, right? Whether it's a service, make some sourdough, harvest some honey, I don't know what, but figure it out. That's the best fu to the government you will ever do, right? Be
I dig it.
self-sufficient. And women have lost that ability because of so many external forces, right? Be this, be that. You should have a career. You should staying at home and serving your husband. That's ridiculous. Why would you want to do that? Aren't you better than that? Aren't you worth more than that? And now we have an entire generation that's looking at this going, yeah, that's freaking stupid. I literally can't do it all. I am not superwoman. I don't care how many memes you create. I'm not. I can't do it all. Even in my own business, I pay people to do things they're good at, like make me a website, edit my stuff, right? I am not someone that does everything. So telling women this lie, it's creating this part of me needing you. I need the government to feed me this stuff. So look, I'm sensitive to the fact that we had an absolute crisis, and we still do, by the way, of a formula shortage. Go look at the store any day this week. There ain't nothing on the dang shelf. I'm sensitive to that. I understand that there are women crying because they don't know how they're going to feed their babies. And that hurts my heart. It does. But this could have been avoided, and I could have helped you. And it doesn't even have to be me. It could have been someone else that helped you, right?
Sure.
It could have been someone else that said, hey, let's fix this breastfeeding problem, or let me show you your baby really is not hungry anymore. Let me show you the cues. He's sleeping, he's limp and flaccid, like he's not freaking out. Like that's a milk junk baby. He's good. Yes, he's going to need to eat in 2 more hours, because he's supposed to, right?
Right, right.
This topping them off thing with formula has also been proven to increase obesity, childhood allergies and illnesses. It affects their IQ. And again, I'm not judging someone that is in this situation or has found themselves in a situation where they've needed to use formula. I'm not an idiot. I'm happy it's 2022 and we have resources available to us. And it's not 1863 and I'm in a freaking covered wagon. Okay. But let's be very honest with ourselves. You made choices. Choices have consequences. Whatever those choices are, consequences are neither good nor bad. They are just an outcome of a choice you made. So we have to take ownership for that, right? So we have an entire group of women who, for whatever reason, have chosen to use formula, and they're setting themselves up for a possible disaster like we're seeing today. How many times have people like us been screaming, you better be prepared, you better be prepared?
Do you get pushback on this from any of your clients?
Again, I know, because I have individuals that are seeking out home birth, and they're, like I mentioned earlier, they're already questioning the status quo. Most of my clients are stay-at-home moms, homeschooling, breastfeeding their babies, co-sleeping, all the things.
How about medical people?
Oh yeah, people love to argue with me about this stuff. I just spent several months in an Afghan refugee camp working with Afghan women, and I will tell you, as they're not modern. They don't have an education. Most of them can't read or write, and I will tell you, they were the most attentive women to their children. They had no problems with breastfeeding. Their labors were so fast. No complications. And it's because they're tapping into their resources. They've created a community. Women take care of other women there, right? It's this group of ladies that are caring for each other. They're in a refugee camp. Their mama is still in Afghanistan. They didn't come over here with their mom and their sisters and their aunties, but they created a universe for themselves where they're helping each other. These women, it was so funny. I was doing my normal thing of like teaching them how to breastfeed, and they're like, no, you silly American woman. That's not how you do it. They got on the floor, propped up their knee, put their baby's head on their knee, and then smushed their knee to their breast. And that's how they breastfeed their babies. And they just sat there just fine, talking with their girlfriends, having a great old time. And I'm like, dang, that's amazing. I'm going to try that one with a mom, but we need a boppy pillow and a cushy couch and all this stuff. And I'm not knocking that. Hey, it's nice to have AC and cushy couches.
Sure.
But it's lovely. I love it. AC is great. I'm from Texas. It's hot. Okay, that's lovely. But there are so many other ways to look at it. And I think it's funny that we keep coming back to in this conversation that, people from other generations probably knew how to do all this stuff way better than we do.
Right. It's what's old is now new again. Including haircuts. Talk a little bit. So since we're talking about the feeding, talk about colostrum a little bit and what happens to infants when they don't get that at the onset of life.
Yeah, so we have a nickname for colostrum. It's called liquid gold, and it's very much condensed breast milk.
What, the first couple days, week, how long?
It's the first couple of days. It sometimes can be even the first 5 days for some women until their adult, their grown-up baby milk comes in. That's what I like to call it.
Same for all mammals, right?
Absolutely. It's the same for all nursing mammals. Absolutely. And I compare colostrum to your protein shake before you go to the gym. So it's a condensed amount of things you need to perform a physical task, right? Maybe you add a couple other things like your creatine powders and all your other fun goody things before you go to the gym. And what is that doing? It's helping setting you up for success at that workout. Well, if you think about what babies are doing after they're born, it's kind of like a marathon. They're multiplying cells and building their brain, and they're finishing their development development. Humans are never not developing. From the moment of conception to your last breath on your deathbed, you're always in a stage of development, right? And so we're growing much faster in infancy and in that neonatal period. That's one of the reasons they eat all the time. Their stomach is the size of a marble. That's tiny, and they need to eat and have all those calories. So colostrum is condensed because they don't have a lot of space. And so it also helps with their microbiome. So that gut lining, that's mouth, esophagus, all the way down to their gut and all their intestines. And it works with mom's passive immunity from her antibodies, and it works with the gut lining, and it helps create this immune system, we talk about as, medical people and people on the outside world, us knowledgeable people. So it helps build all of those puzzle pieces together. So when babies don't get that, it's harder for them. It's harder for them to get to build that immune system. It's harder for them to have the right energy and resources to build all their bits and pieces. Every system in their body is not done developing until much later. I mean, the human brain doesn't even finish developing until it's 25. So give yourself some grace, on the things you did when you were 22.
I'm sorry.
No, I just said, you have to give yourself some grace when you were 22 and made silly decisions. Cause I did too. And it's because, your brain wasn't done developing.
Yeah. I don't wish for those days of lack of good choices at all.
Sure. So we all did it.
We take a newborn and we feed them dehydrated cow's milk and whatever other shits in formula.
Yes.
And I know there's formula that's for brand new babies versus, like 3 to 6 months and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We're robbing them of all of those good bits you're talking about.
Yeah, because
from the immune standpoint.
Yeah, and even just nutrition. If you had, let's just pick a really good breakfast. Oatmeal is a really great breakfast, especially if you don't put all the sugary stuff on it. So let's pretend you have oatmeal. My favorite's a bowl of steel cut oats, and let's put fruits on it and maybe some shredded coconut and all that fun stuff. Let's make it the best composition of proteins, vitamins, minerals. But if you only ate that breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the first year of your life, I don't care how healthy that is. Is it well balanced? Is it a variety of foods? Are you getting a variety of colors? The answer is no. And when you have breast milk, you're getting a baby version, a condensed baby version of what your mom had. So when she has, a buffalo burger and a side of sweet potato fries and a really awesome beet and a feta salad for dinner, you're getting all of that, but smushed into baby condensed version, for lunch the next day, because it takes less than 24 hours to package that up and turn it into a meal for baby later. Isn't it crazy? It's so crazy cool. I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
So we've got this system that nature, God, the universe, whoever created, and we're like, nah, we'll just take some soy and corn and cow's milk and mix it up, put some sugar and shit in it, and you can mix it with some tap water and call it good. This other thing doesn't work.
Yeah, and there are ways to make a baby formula that if you were in a really bad situation, like when the heat of the moment of the formula shortage was happening, I had a lot of people, military and civilian wise, say, I work in remote areas, or I'm doing austere medicine. What do I do for these babies if you're saying that formula is not really good for them? And I said, that's a great question. There are many recipes that are out there that are great. So Sally Fallon has one. There's another doctor. I posted them on my Instagram page. I'll put it as a story in my feed today for viewers in case they want to see that. I don't have a problem. I'll share that with you too. But I posted a recipe that is appropriate, and I also linked a company that makes a fairly decent goat milk formula in a powder.
we raised goats. My mother
Yeah.
fed some of my brothers and sisters goat milk.
Absolutely. And so goat milk is the closest that we have access to in the United States, composition wise, to human breast milk. It's not perfect, but it definitely is a really great option. Mm-hmm. So if you were in a pinch and you didn't have what you needed, absolutely, you could totally get, goat's milk. And that would be great. So if you had, a grid down situation, the EMP finally came, you lost a mom, you had an infant that you needed to care for, you definitely could use that as an option for sure.
What you said the closest in the US, what other animal is better?
Someone was arguing about like
monkeys.
camel milk being an awesome option. And I was like, well, I just don't have a camel in my backyard. So I just don't know what to do about that. But I mean, I can get access to goats in the US. So, and I'm not going to milk a camel.
I would. I was a goat milking champion 4 times. I could milk the shit out of a camel.
I want to see this. So if and when this happens, please invite me.
Well, just same thing. Yeah, I could handle it.
I think you got it too.
I can handle it. How do people find you? Like so you're the combat midwife on social media. How do people find you if they want to hire you, do training with you?
So I have a website, same title. You can just do combatmidwife.com. I'm really active on Instagram. You can send me messages there. I do every Monday.
That's how I found you.
Yeah. You still have to tell me how you did that. I don't know.
I was reading comments on something. I don't remember what it was. And I saw whatever you commented on something. And I just thought, oh, that's interesting. The title. So I saw what your stuff was. Yeah.
Oh, that's really, I'm sure it was something passionate. I'm sure I was being snarky on some.
I don't remember. The combat midwife, caught my eye. I thought, let's check out what this person's doing. And I saw your page and.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad we're new friends now. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So your website is combatmidwife.com.
Yep.
And you're based in the great state of Texas.
Yes, I am.
All right. And you travel though. So if somebody wanted to hire you to do some training for them, for their department, for something like that.
Absolutely. You just, you can send me an email, which is ask@combatmidwife. That's a really great way. Or you can, lots of people just send me a message on, some sort of social media platform. That's great too. And then I will custom build something. So for the civilian realm, usually it's me custom building a program that is specific to what your needs are. In example, I had a birth center reach out to me and say, hey, so we didn't have a really good transfer with EMS. Could you help us work on what that would look like in the future to be more successful? I said, yeah, sure. So I flew out. Cool. Yeah, I flew out there. I worked with the birth center. I invited the local EMS company to come hang out with us for the day. And I provided both entities with continuing education units. And so that was really awesome. So they kind of got to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? They got really good education, but they got something out of it too, right? They got to get their CEUs that they have to get anyway. Yeah, or even if it's a private organization, I've had ladies contact me and say, we just really want to prep for what might come in the future. Could you come? Yeah, could you come hang out with us? Because we're trying to create a community, to be prepared for whatever might come later. And I said, absolutely. So we had a group of 10 ladies or so. I came with all my fun mannequins and things, and we ran through what a normal birth looks like, what the problems look like that aren't really necessarily problems. I teach you the tips and tricks on how to navigate that. And there you go.
I like it. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and share some of your knowledge and experience. You get super passionate. I can see you want to punch some politicians in the face, it looks like. That's cool.
Yeah, I do actually. But yes, and passion is good, especially in your career path. If you love it, then it will show. I
agree. You guys that watched and listened, I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. We try to find interesting people that do interesting things. And maybe stir you to think about some stuff differently. Modern medicine's badass. I just saw a neighbor of mine the other day that's 84 years old that would be dead if it wasn't for modern medicine. They found a huge blood clot on the side of his heart that almost killed him, and they fixed him up, and he's back out in the yard doing stuff a week later.
That's awesome.
If that was 20, 30, 50, or 100 years ago, he probably would be dead for certain. So there are many things that I think we do right. But I think the context of today's conversation is sometimes we do get things drastically wrong. And it's worth taking a look at that and asking questions why. I think food choices that medicine and big food companies have told us over the years is a perfect example. Eat meat, don't eat meat. Eat this, don't eat that, whatever it might be. Fats are bad, fats are good. Hell, now you can just live on butter and meat, according to some medical professionals. So I think having a good understanding of all of these things is great. And remember, you guys pass this stuff on. I wouldn't have any interest in any of this if it wasn't for how I was raised. Your kids watch what you do, and they become the next people that are going to be out there in the world. So think about the shit that you're passing. I'm trying to watch my mouth, and I said, think about the shit that you're passing on to your children. And it matters. Go follow Jessica on Instagram. Are you anywhere else? You on Facebook? You on TikTok? You doing like weird things like with babies on TikTok?
No. So I have Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, my website. I got Parlor and all that stuff too, but I'm most active on Instagram. We do really
Combat Midway.
Oh, and YouTube. Yeah, I forgot I have YouTube too. There you go.
All right. Next time I'm in Texas, maybe we get together and shoot a video for the YouTube channel.
Yes, let's do it. We'll do tactical under fire birthing.
I mean, I think that's probably the best place to bring a kid into the world, but yeah. There's a lot of stuff I think we could talk about. We should probably talk and plan another episode to cover some other topics that we didn't even get. We didn't even talk about what a home birth looks like, but that's something I think we'll have to come back and visit. Yeah, I was thinking about it. That could be a whole nother hour.
It could be. Let's do it. It's a date. Thank you so much.
You got it. You guys that have listened, be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them. Share this podcast if it was something that you found interesting. Bye now. Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com. Hey man, what are you doing in the podcast room, Steve?
I'm writing a national anthem. It's going to be at folk festivals for Gunfighter Gun Oil.
Oh.
Let me tell you about Gunfighter Gun Oil. Made in the USA. Gunfighter Gun Oil, 100% synthetic. It's gonna last you, baby. Yeah. Gunfighter Gun Oil is the best I've ever seen. It's gonna make you get everything that you've ever seen. Oh, baby, I love me some Gunfighter Gun Oil. Yeah. Oh, Gunfighter Gun Oil. Gunfighter.
Gonna get my lighter out. I don't have it.
It wasn't even Bob Dylan. It was like a love story.